I'll double check on Facebook here.
Oh, we're live and I just made a face.
You're supposed to make faces. That's what makes this fun. Now is the time to make the faces.
Do it. These are the ones that are going to show up when we're...
When Facebook freezes it, isn't that the worst? And you're always like...
Agreed.
Shoot.
I love the little meme that you posted in the middle of the night. And I was like, wait, does she know I'm always staring at myself in the camera and she's directly to me? Or does she stare at herself?
It's the koala and the koala's nose is ginormous. And I just am like, that's all I do is look at it. I'm like, geez, my nose is so big. And I'm like, oh yeah, Randy, you're totally right.
No wonder, Jen.
Oh, goodness.
I hit the wrong thing.
Are we live?
Now we're live on YouTube. Okay, now we're getting to Facebook. Then I wonder why that didn't work. Jeez Louise. We'll figure this out one day, I'm
nobody
sure.
saw our faces. We have to do it again.
On YouTube, it's all saved on YouTube.
Fuck.
Forever.
I mean, fuck.
Yeah.
There, I think. No wonder why that countdown stuff didn't work.
Oh, because it was all on YouTube?
It was all on YouTube. I'm sorry. I'll have to go back and fix some of that later.
No, but you figured it out, so.
Mistakes leads to
growth. Trauma helps us grow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cheers to that.
But we are. It looks like we are live.
Cool.
Jeez, yeah, we're all good now. Live.
Cool.
I'm gonna share it.
Do we have any people?
There we go. We got a couple. Hi, ladies.
Hi,
And
everybody.
Cheryl.
We really thought we were going to get our shit together today. And we got together half an hour beforehand to get all the echoing out. And then we kind of fell apart.
My fault. I take blame.
Oh, no.
Not at all.
No.
No.
This is a collective. We share the blame around here.
Well, Jen has a lot on her shoulders because she's kind of like, and Lena too. Lena knows a lot of tech stuff too.
Yes.
Those two kind of carry Missy and my ass.
And we are a heavy load, aren't we? Their backs are getting sore.
I'm sure we carry in other ways that are unidentified yet.
You are like, did you ever watch Pollyanna?
Me?
Yeah.
No. I'm Pollyanna? For real? Oh my gosh. Cheryl, Jamie, and Karen, do you guys believe I'm Pollyanna? I need to hear some answers.
Positive Pollyanna.
Jen, Lena, Pollyanna?
You just went over my head a little bit,
I was
actually.
going to say,
Jenna's so young. You don't know.
Oh my goodness.
You know who I loved was Pippi Longstocking.
I know who Pippi Longstocking is.
I wanted to
Now see, I've not seen her, so I know who
just
she
picture
is
kind
because
of-
of people's Halloween costumes, but that's
She's
it.
kind of rambunctious and mischievous, and that's how I aspire.
So's Pollyanna.
Really?
Double Trouble.
Oh, I didn't know
She's
that.
obsessively positive.
Jamie,
Thank you.
stop it. You don't know shit.
I don't know how old.
All right.
I don't know how old I didn't know if Jamie was old enough to know who Pollyanna was.
Jamie's in her 60s.
So she's the perfect age.
Is Cheryl on board too?
In the best way.
Okay. Thank you. I love it.
Okay, what are we doing today? Because I don't remember.
Well, right. It's kind of been a weird week. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Jen,
Yeah.
you kind of went quiet. Like I felt your energy just kind of.
Yeah, I was struggling a little bit. Not gonna lie.
Were you?
Yeah. It was good. It's all, for the best, you try to, but there's been, I don't know what it all is, but I've been struggling a little bit. I did take, from Thursday on, it's been a little bit better, but early in the week, it was, something's happening. But it's all good. It's all real. Just stuff, shadow stuff, void stuff, alchemy stuff. You know.
Yeah. Lena, how was your week?
It was pretty good. It was kind of it felt like a long week. Lots of changes to, you know, work through at work, just because everything is so crazy right now, and businesses are trying to adjust their practices, and we're trying to help them out as best we can. So
Yeah.
that aspect of my life is like consistently at 100 miles an hour. And then this, I've been trying to figure out some more technology so that I can do like sound recordings and videos and stuff, and that just gets frustrating because I'm like,
You got a new mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
had a little
it's-
bit of mic envy when I saw that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, look what Lena has. She's so
yeah,
bougie.
hardly.
I just want to be like you when I grow up. That's all.
Oh, that's so sweet, you guys. Did you see
It's not-
Jamie's comment? Honey, I'm old enough to know Jesus.
I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Well,
And Cheryl said the energy's been way off too.
Yeah.
It's kind of been funky. There's a lot of funk, but
How about you guys?
it's like every morning I wake up and it's like that realization right away. It's like, oh God, another day of this.
Yeah.
And what is this? Like I haven't really, I don't have anything to complain about really, other than I just can't go out and be the little butterfly I want to be. I have to like watch where I'm going and who I'm seeing. So
a surprising source for me stated these were things that I took for granted before, like going out and doing things, and I was like, "That's very astute of you."
yeah.
So there is a little bit of that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was so happy. Yesterday, my husband and son went out hiking all day. So they left at like 6:30 in the morning, and I had from 6:30 until probably 3 or 4 in the afternoon all to myself. Which, if you guys know me, Randy needs lots of space and
That's
alone
heaven.
time. So it was wonderful, and I didn't do anything.
Good.
Okay, I think we can get started, right? Like we've just chit-chatted enough now. But so like I said in the little post, if you read that, every week after this, we shut you guys off and we stay on and we talk. And some of it's silly and some of it's funny and some of it's vulgar and whatever. We talk
Most of it's vulgar, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's more fun afterwards. Just kidding. Not really. But we stay on and we talk about like what we could improve on and things like that, and then always have the topic figured out before we sign off and who's going to do it. And something I've wanted to do, just because I think we're all storytellers naturally, would just be to tell stories and not really teach anything per se. And so it seemed like the perfect week this week to just kind of continue last week's conversation about how we brought our gifts forward into the world as practitioners, and kind of tell some of our most impactful, powerful sessions that we've had and what we learned along the way, because you never stop learning any of this and you always find new ways to bring those gifts forward or have different opportunities. I think we've all had situations where it's like, what? You want me to deal with this? I don't know what I'm doing, and you just have to kind of relax into what to do. You just have to open yourself up to source and let that knowing come through and out. So I thought it would be kind of cool just to talk about some of our stories. We all on board with that? Who's excited? Wow.
Yeah, I've been thinking this whole week, like, what the hell am I going to say or talk about and what's going to be?
Yeah.
But I think this morning it finally hit me. I got something. So.
You want to start it off?
Well, I thought you were leading this.
You want me to start it off?
I don't care.
I don't care either.
No. But it was cool to see just on a reflection part of it, like looking back, as a practitioner, which was important. I think so. Thank you for that opportunity.
Yeah,
Just in that. So
you're welcome. Hi, Lisa. So I've had a couple of really impactful things, and I can only talk about one of them because if I talked about the other one, you'd know what it was all about. So, and we're not going to do that. But the one that I'm going to talk about happened about 2 years ago, and holy crap, I was just reading the blog that I had written right after this all happened, and I got chills and I kind of started crying again because it was just so crazy. And so most of my sessions that have been really powerful, they always start with a dream. There's always a dream. And so this one, I had been dreaming, and it was my husband and I and Jamie, who's watching. We were driving through this really flat, like a state park, and looking for a place to camp, right? Because Jamie and I go camping all the time. And I'm just kidding. But so we found this place to stop and get out, and I was kind of walking around, and I looked, and there was this deep, deep ocean right off of the land. And you know how that just doesn't make sense? It's like flat land and then deep, deep ocean. But then I found myself on a slave ship, and I was a slave woman, and I was standing at the edge of the ship contemplating jumping over or not. And it was like, if I stay here, I'm going to die. If I jump over, I'm going to die. Like, what's the better death? And then I'm on land and I'm in a cage, like I'm at slave auction, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh, thank God I'm contained in here. I feel kind of safe. And then I look up across from me and I see the blackest, most intense woman I have ever seen in my life. And when I say black, I mean the color of her skin. And her head is down and she's staring up at me super intensely. So intensely that it startled me awake. And I woke up not feeling scared, but just like, holy crap, what was that? So I called Jamie the next morning when I knew she'd be awake. And I was like, holy crap. And she's like, I know. Wasn't that amazing? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, oh, that woman was hilarious. I'm like, did we meet the same woman? Because and so she was like, no, yeah, we met the same woman. And she described how we had been in the vehicle looking for a place to camp. And this black woman came up and was talking and telling jokes and all of that. I'm like, that is not the version of the woman that I met. But she said, well, she's here with me now. And she's like, yeah, she's telling me, yeah, it was her. It was her. And I was like, well, what does she need? And she's like, nothing. She doesn't need anything. A couple days later, then she wakes up from a dream in the middle of the day during her nap. And she's like, oh my God. The woman gave me a slave song. And she's like, and I wrote it all down. Oh. And here's the slave song. Here's the words. You need to have it. Because she told me, she said, give this to Randy. She'll know when the words are needed. I was like, all right. And, of course, we're trying to analyze it and figure out what it means and who it's for and all of that. And it was like, we have to let this go. So now we're going to fast forward to a couple of weeks later. And I had a client was coming in to see me, and she's always somebody that I'm really excited to see. And so I had somebody before her walked out, and she was in the waiting room waiting for me. And she's always effervescent and very positive and always excited to see you. And this time she was slumped in her chair and she was just weary. And I thought, whoa, this is not the woman I know. What is going on? So went into my office and we were talking, and she was, telling me about things that are going on in her life and how she's having a hard time with certain relationships. And none of it feels, how when you're doing a session and you're talking to somebody and it just feels cold, like it's not bringing up the thread that really needs to be addressed. And so that kept happening. And all of a sudden she was talking and she looked at me and she said, oh my God, on my drive here, they told me I needed to remind you of the boat. And I'm like, what? The boat? I was like, holy crap, I need to tell you about this dream that I had. And so I'm telling her the dream, and she is sobbing. And I said, do you think that was you? And she said, I know it was. I know it was. So I'm going to, if you don't mind me just reading part of the blog, because it explains so much more than what I'm saying about the session.
Mhm.
Let me find it real quick. So, sorry for this dead air. Okay. Oh my God, I had it right before we started. See, all of these technical issues. Okay, so as I settle this person in for the healing work, I'm telling her about the time that I spent in West Africa studying the transatlantic slave trade. And so this is important because I'm so drawn and connected to the slave trade from the African side. I've always wanted to go to Africa. I've always wanted to live in Africa. I finally got to go, and it was like, that is where I belong. And I just can't seem to make my way back there. Anyway, I think that's past life stuff. That's where I had been. So, and that relates to what I'm going to talk about later. I asked her if she had always felt a strong connection or emotion regarding the slave trade. And she said she's always felt the strength of the slave spirit, and it's always tugged at her heart. As I tune into her energy field, I ask for the Creator's guidance to take over. As I become the conduit for the healing, I am inundated with impressions. As I establish connection with this person, my hands on her shoulders, I see her as a slave woman being whipped, beaten, and abused. I see her being choked as my hands are on the back of her neck. But most prominently, I see her current boss. He was her slave master. In this lifetime and past lifetimes, he has been scared of her power, and of her strength. And this woman is a very powerful woman. She walks into the room and you can't not look at her. You know, you can feel the energy emanating off of her. As we work on finding and changing belief systems surrounding attachment, I see the slave woman's spirit detach from this person, from her physical body, and get lost. We cannot continue meaningful work until this lost part of her soul is integrated back into her being. I explain what I see to the client and receive consent to proceed. As we begin the process of soul retrieval and integration, I see the African woman from my dream approach the left side of the table. In my mind's eye, I see she has approached on the left side of the boat. My client has been grasping the edge, contemplating her jump overboard. The woman holds out her hand and says, "Come with me. You no longer need to endure this. You no longer have to stay here." Though letting go of the boat means certain death to my client, she is coaxed to unclench her grasp and step overboard. As the client steps over the edge of the boat, their two spirits ascend above the boat and swirl around and around each other until they become one. Finally, their spirit settles peacefully on top of the water, and they float in serene freedom. After our session has concluded and we are easing ourselves back into this time and space, my client looks at me and she says, "I didn't tell you this at all, but earlier in the week I was working on quantum healing techniques. I found myself in slave quarters where a woman was up on blocks being whipped. I approached her from the left. What the hell? I approached her from the left, held out my hand, and said, "Come with me. You no longer have to endure this. You no longer have to stay here." I mean, oh God, say something so I can just cry. Holy crap, you guys. I mean, like, I can't make this crap up, right? Like, she had already gone through the process and needed me to help her go through the process. It's really incredible. So what is really interesting is, like, 2 months later, my husband and I we were in Maryland for a friend's wedding, and he was in the wedding, and the morning of the wedding I had like 5 hours of free time. So we were about 10 minutes away from North Point State Park, And so when you go to this peninsula, you have the Chesapeake Bay on one side and the Potomac on the other, and they like converge, right? Have you been there, Missy? Yeah.
My brother-in-law lives there.
Oh my God. And so I was walking around and I was just like, oh, this is so beautiful. And it feels so nice and peaceful. And all the egrets and the herons and, all of these birds that I naturally just love are everywhere. And I'm walking and all of a sudden it's just like I got stopped cold in my tracks and my body vibrated. And there was the woman standing in front of me. And she was like, we've been here before. This is the place. This is where this. And I looked around and it was the same place Jamie and Matt and I had been driving looking for a place to camp. I mean, it was like fucking astounding, right?
That's amazing.
It is amazing, but thank you.
But like, look at you when you chose to pick an impactful story. Obviously, you picked one that is still impactful, even the years. I mean, like to elicit an emotional response.
Yeah, it's
so.
And I've always. So, what did I learn? What has this brought into my work is that so many things that I had never done before, like leading a person through a meditation, soul integration, or whatever, where they were doing the work themselves. That was a new thing for me. And thankfully it was with this person because she's very gifted and can do those things very easily. She just needs guidance, as we all do when we're really hurt and looking for answers. But that changed my practice because now if I'm going to do anything that's really impactful, well, if I do almost anything, if there's any kind of imagery that goes with it, the person that's on my table or sitting in the chair is doing the work and I'm just there to help guide. I'm seeing it too, but they need to tell me what they're seeing and they need to tell me what they're feeling. And I'm taking the cues from them because I don't want to do the work, and it needs to come from them. And they're the ones, if it's a soul retrieval, they're the ones that have to hold out their hand and get that. And then they need to identify where in the body it has to go and they have to put it in there and they have to seal it. Like they have to do that themselves to empower them. The other thing that I learned was my dreams. I'd already known because Jamie and I dream a lot together. And, I dreamt of Missy last night. I don't really know what we were doing, but I was like, oh, Missy. Hey. But my dreams okay, does everybody else have different kinds of dreams? Like you have your prophetic dreams and you have your, you know what I'm saying? There's different kinds. And you wake up some mornings and you're like, whoa, that was a message dream. That I really need to pay attention to that. And what this dream showed me was that are there not only two meanings? Because there was meaning in that dream for me. There was meaning in that dream for my client. There was meaning for Jamie. But there was meanings for other people too. And I mean, it just shows how our, like our interconnectedness is so tangled and varied. And, you stroke one little web or one little piece of that web and it just reverberates out and it impacts everybody, and that just was so profound for me to see how far out that extended, like how early it started before I actually had the session with the person, before Jamie even got the message from the woman, that song. And then months later to have it all be concluded when I'm on vacation.
Why do you suppose it takes, like, aside from the fact that their time is not our time and we are severely, like, slowed down, do you think that's why this took months to resolve itself? Because I find the same thing.
That I don't really know because I'm trying to think here. Others that I've had that have been impactful have been immediate. Like the meaning is known right away and the action is right away and the resolution is right away. But this one, I don't know. I don't know if it was just like I needed to be out there in Maryland for that to be resolved because then it would be more impactful because I was right there in that spot. I don't know.
That's the amount of coordination that they do always just completely overwhelms and humbles me in a hot minute because it's
Yeah.
you have no idea how important all the timelines of your soul are to them until until you see it. You had
Yeah.
to coordinate this trip to Maryland and this dream with Jamie and the pull of the string that pulled this string that pulled that string, and
Yeah.
you're just like, and you did that for this?
Little me. Yeah. I
It's
mean, and
very
I,
humbling.
think about all the healing that took place in that for me too, because of the slave theme. It was, I think I'm still feeling that too. We're all a slave to something, is what that came out of that. We all have
I
something.
did not know that about you.
Oh, do you know for
Um,
you guys? And for years, I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, who is that woman? Why is she so white?
that just makes me want to hop offline and be because I also had a, we've had this conversation where I know that the two of us are entangled in some way in some past life stuff, and I've never talked to you about my slave stuff.
Oh my God. Oh,
Dun dun dun.
it's a powerful theme, man. It's pervasive. But I mean, that's my story. I mean, I don't know.
I just need a minute
A
to take
lot
it in,
shifted
and
after
that's a
that.
lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So do you find yourself consistently referencing that? Like, this is what happened in this situation. Maybe I can revisit that sort of
No.
point again, or it happened and you're done.
Yeah, it kind of happened and I was done. And then I went to Maryland and I had that bone chilling, awesome moment where it's like, holy crap. I'm walking where I had walked once before. I've been here, you know. But then it was over.
So when you
I
say
feel like it healed something.
when you say bone chilling, did you get like you had a visceral response as well?
Oh, yeah. My body was vibrating. Yeah, I was super cold. Yep.
I forgot you were a vibrator. You do that a lot, don't you?
I do. A lot. Yeah. So that's my story. Who's going to go next?
Wowie zowie.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, somebody else can follow that.
Okay, fine. Okay.
I knew it.
Oh, man. Okay. Yeah, I thought about this a lot because a lot of mine have been readings for the most part. Like I do a lot. That's a big bulk of my services. They're tarot and oracle readings or readings of some sort. Or just sitting and letting people, talk it out type of thing. So, and this wasn't necessarily a paid session. But it did happen about, what is it, almost 3 years ago now? 2.5, 3, something like that. And it was just a big pivotal moment in kind of recognizing kind of what I'm meant to do or some of my abilities and how I'm supposed to share. So I think I'm going to use this as an example. So we were at the game store, surprise, surprise. And we were just browsing the counter, looking at different cards. I'm brewing a new deck to build to play against Nick. And, we're just kind of bullshitting together with friends. And for some reason, I kept getting something kind of looped in my head a little bit, And prior to this, we had found out Nick's grandmother was, basically she was in hospice, but she was in home. So she was getting hospice care at home. And we knew things weren't good. We visited her often. So every time we'd visit, I would get things and be like, okay, but I'm not, that's not my shtick, right? I send you healing, I support you. And she was a stubborn, very hard-headed lady very strong. Oh my God, this, and I didn't get to know her when she was really in her prime or really healthy. Ever since I've met her, she's always kind of had this, she'd been going downhill for quite a while, but so she'd been bedridden. We'd visit her, all this stuff. So I'd started to spend more time with her. Off and on with Nick's family, we'd go visit. We'd have dinner over there just to, be in her presence and help her any way we can. And as you would, in most cases, family in those situations tend to talk about the things like your medication and talk of things about the hospice care, what's going on, and all of the nitty gritty stuff that you have to do when things happen, right? When she passes, we're gonna do this and all this. So she's there, not really able to communicate the best. She kind of kept coming in and out of consciousness, and but I could always tell that she was there listening, right? And so I felt kind of bad doing, the Reiki work and talking to her higher self, all of that the best I can. But so that's kind of like the family wasn't necessarily fully together at all the time, so they had shifts, right? So all the Nick's uncles would be at their right time, your scheduled time, and so it was always very logistical feeling around her. And so anyway, we're back at the game store, and I kept hearing this word, and I think it slipped out of my mouth a little bit, and I had no idea because her name, I think we're good to say this, but like, her name I knew her was Jackie, and so I kept saying this word like just Marion, and Nick's there at the counter with me, and he just goes, "What did you say?" And I go, "What? What was that? I don't know. Marion? Do we have to go to Marion for anything?" Thinking like, so I he just kind of had this look on his face. He's like, "Is how because I was getting into this." I was starting to feel out more of my gifts and all of that, and I think he believes and supports me 1,000%, and so I think he just had this knowing that I somehow picked up on something that I didn't even have that understanding yet. He goes, "That's my grandma's real name." I go, "Oh, okay, let's reel this back a little bit." And so I kind of had to sit. Everything at that moment was fine, but that was the first moment that first immediately we call, Nick's parents. "How is she? Oh my gosh. Anything?" "Oh no, she's fine. She's, so, but had contacted me while she was still living. She was in and out of consciousness, and I think I was just probably the easiest person to get to at that point, I talked to my friend Jan about it, and basically I decided the best I can do is just to be open and to be there for her. So it started my practice of just connecting on my own and saying, "What can I do for you? What healing can I send you?" Whatever. And after a few weeks of that, maybe even a month, I guess I don't know how long that time span happened, I was getting very strong feelings that things are coming to a head here, and what do I even do about this? And I had a freak out moment, like I'm not equipped for this. I don't deal in this at all. I'm a tarot card reader. What the hell? So, but I kept going in this really strong, and I would talk to Jan, and she would help me out. She would connect the best she could, and I finally came to the conclusion that I needed to call in my mother-in-law. I said, "I need to talk to you. This is going to sound crazy. You have to come." I had her come to my work office. I said, "We need to have a chat." And I had shared with her some info that I believe I had gotten. I said, "This is going to sound crazy. I know. And I hope that this comes across with love and with it not freak you out. But Jackie needs this." And what I had gotten was that she needed her boys together with her in her room and just chat about, and I had some sort of imagery of something. I'm trying to remember what it was. Was it, I don't know if it was sledding or something that they would do, boating. I don't quite 100% remember, but, and I brought that up. I said she wants to talk about this. And she wants her boys together, not in like a scheduled shift, and she doesn't want to care about what medication they're arguing about or who did what or is she getting the right care, da 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 da, what they're going to do with her money afterwards. She just wants to have a meal with them. And Patty took it pretty well, my mother-in-law, and she's like, okay, I believe you, I trust you, but she's like, let me figure this out. So then after it'd been a couple weeks, I think she had to probably convince some of, the brothers to come together. So Nick's dad was for it, and I don't know how that worked. At that point, I stepped back. I said I did what I needed to do. I kind of stopped hearing from her or feeling her a little bit, and then my focus was like these boys and this family and just sending them as much support as I could. And I got a call from Patty, said, okay, we did it. It's happening on XYZ date at this time, and they're going to just go in and have dinner with her. They went and got KFC, and they went and sat in a room with TV trays, and they just had a family dinner again with no stuff, no death talk at all. It was shortly after they actually, I don't know what a couple of them left. There was somebody still there. I think maybe my Nick's mom or dad. I'm trying to remember the details because I wasn't there. But they left, and I would say Patty said within about 10 minutes after this had transpired, she had passed, and she had gotten what she needed. And it was so and I could feel it. Like when you're so connected with somebody, and I know, I keep telling them like she can hear you, and she's there, and she's listening, and she just needs the love and the support right now. And it was amazing to see that family choosing to come together. I don't know what they all know. I don't know what Patty told them. Like, oh yeah, my crazy daughter-in-law heard some stuff. I have no clue, but she somehow made it happen, and ended up giving this woman she was hanging on so strongly just to have one little piece of something together. And I don't know how that applies now is I really learned how to hold space for multiple different levels in a same situation. Like there's multiple moving parts in that. There was my husband and what he was feeling. And there was, me and what I was feeling, freaked out, not feeling equipped for any of this. There was, Patty trying to support, she's, married into the family, so trying to support her, what she was logistical, like this is what we're doing. And then those boys and her, like it was so many different levels of holding space and touching in with her night after night after night and feeling, what do you need from me now? How can I help you? And sometimes for me, it was just touching base and feeling her, which was really neat too. Like that sometimes they don't always need a specific outcome or specific action plan. They just want to feel somebody because there's so much chaos happening around in their world there. They're scared and they don't know, and then after that, receiving positive messaging, about a week or two after she had passed, being able to hear, even I believe it was Nick's sister had a dream that both of her grandparents coming to her saying, hey, we're playing golf up top, So it was like seeing all of that happen and transpire the way it did really just, one, it helped my confidence. It helped trust whatever the hell is happening. And also you have to say it sometimes. You just have to get it out. Whatever this is, this messaging, this, like, I can't do this alone, and I need, like, I couldn't have done that without the support of Jan. I couldn't have done it without actually expressing it to Patty, and that was scary. Like, it was almost like coming out of the woo closet, if you will. Like, okay, I'm gonna sound like the crazy one here, but this is what I'm getting, and this is why I think this is important, and I'm really in being firm with it. Like, sometimes I'm so not wanting that confrontation in a lot of ways. Like, this has to happen. I don't care how you do it, but this has to happen. And just holding space in that way. And now there are sometimes my friend Jan will contact me and said, okay, I got another one, I need your help. And we come together and we connect and try to help these people pass. And it's such a privilege to be welcomed into their energy field and for them to feel comfortable enough to, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. So that has been, well, I don't do that every day, and I'm not part of my, like, I'm not going to put that on my website necessarily as this is what I do, but it's something that really stuck with me, and it actually touches my life more often than I would like to admit.
You went through this when we went through shaman class together, right?
Yeah.
And like, you really got interested in the death doula stuff. And did you get to do more work on her after she passed, like with her chakras and stuff like that? Or did you have other people approach you after that?
I've had more approaches after. So okay. She was pretty well ready. It was really interesting because when she was talking to you in more of the conscious 3D world, she seemed scared, and she was talking in ways like, it was very common, the judgment. Like, she was afraid of going and being judged. Yeah. It's very, very common. Mm-hmm. And just saying, like, and I could sense her past husband there in the doorway, just waiting very patiently, very stoic, and I had never met him. And Nick had confirmed that was him. And he wasn't, like, pushing or pulling her in any way. He was letting her do it in her own time, which is also really cool to see. But she was pretty well, like, she was a nurse, and she had a very keen understanding, I think, especially towards that latter end. Like, she had things cleared up. She was ready. She just, like, she needed her family to do their part and to show her that it was okay. She didn't need to be strong enough, like, which is, again, very common. I see now it comes to, like, I'll get somebody else come in and they're like, I'm going to help you, okay. And oftentimes it's dream time, or it's, someone needs it in the middle of the day and you take some time to do it. But, and I was so, because I've not had a lot of death in my life to navigate that, which is also part of why I didn't think I was capable or equipped to handle any of that. But that might be the reason why I can, is I don't have that triggered emotional response. I can do it. I can hold space. I can connect with you and empathize without getting bogged down in it. And so I am very interested and very, I think, in the whole death doula concept, and would love to explore that more, just the opportunity. Mm-hmm. I think I'm doing a lot of it anyway. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
That's very cool. That's impactful. It's beautiful. Yeah.
And I think we all do it more than we're aware of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember we had a class one night and everybody was kind of complaining or, just lamenting about, the energy was so weird this week and so on. And the answer that was channeled was, well, you're helping so many souls exit this particular dimension and move to the next dimension, that it can be energetically, it can just feel like heavy and weighted. And so I think that we do a lot more of that than we're aware of.
Yeah.
I think that's part of ascension too, is becoming aware and knowing that we can do hard things. We can do human things and we can do extra human things.
Well, and Jen, you had that same moment of you knew you knew how to do what you needed to do when you needed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't need to get all anxious and bunched up with, oh my God, I don't know how to do that. You just have to relax into it
Right.
and let it come.
And that's why I think I've eased up right after that. I was like, oh my God, I gotta be a death doula and I gotta go get a certificate and I gotta da da da. And I've really eased up on it because do I need that label and do I need that certificate? Because I'm already doing. And whoever needs me for whatever they need me as a whatever I am, they'll come whether I have that labeled on my website or not. Right? So, oh man, it took me a while to get there, but I did it.
Yes.
It's a big
My
deal.
heart's so happy.
That allowance is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that gets into everything. You can do any of it, any of the things, all of the things.
Yeah.
Hashtag all of the things. I do all of the things.
Sorry to take up so much time, man.
That was
Who's
awesome.
next?
I'm
No,
okay
that was
with going
beautiful.
long. Lane, I think you're up.
My turn? Okay. Yeah. Like Jen, I was kind of having a hard time figuring out what I was going to talk about because, when you start to hold space for people, it's cumulative. There are moments in each session that are impactful, and I was like, man, I haven't had like a mind-blowing experience where I like dreamed about it days in advance and then something crazy happened on the table and then like boom, this happened later on. But what I do have to say today, the story that I'm going to share, it's kind of a cumulative process. So I'm going to start with what I heard from one of my teachers in a session that I was receiving and how it played into this session that I'm going to talk about. So one of the things that I have discovered about myself since I've started to do this kind of work is that I not only have the ability to create space and hold space for people, but I do it in a very calming and like almost like a mothering way. And that was not something that I realized that I could do because, I was not somebody who grew up like babysitting others. I was the youngest in the family. I didn't have younger siblings that I was the caretaker for or watched over or anything like that. So I don't have baby fever. So to me, this was like totally weird and like left field, but I'm like, okay, fine. I guess when you say that, that makes sense. And so, she passed that on and I was like, okay, well, you just kind of let it marinate and see how you feel about it. And fast forward to a few months later, this person who was in my circle of people who do the woo approached me and she was like, hey, would you be willing to do a session with me? I'm looking for somebody just to basically be like a mother type. And I'm like, yeah. I said, I don't want I don't want you to feel like you have to work with me. Let's come over. You can come over and we can just start. And if it doesn't feel like the right combo, then I totally get it. But yeah, no, she came over and she did a couple sound sessions, but then she wanted to do Reiki. And while I do practice Reiki, my favorite thing to practice is angelic chakra integration. And so if you're not familiar with what that is it's basically a method that Stephanie Ryan, the owner of Illuminations, downloaded. She received this and then she started to teach it to others over the years. And so in angelic chakra integration, you are working with 7 archangels for the 7 main chakras. And I actually have the symbols tattooed on my forearm. It's going to be hard to see that right there. Here we go. And so it's Archangel Michael, Chamuel, Jophiel, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Zadkiel. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily use like the type of Reiki that you're familiar with, but I do this, so we can give it a shot. And she got over here, and the second she hit the table and I started doing the music and just kind of creating space, she just started bawling. And I'm like, okay. I just kind of like held space for her. I placed my hands on her shoulders in a way that I felt was like comforting and almost like cradling, but not invasive. And I just held space, and she just let it all out, and she just kind of processed it for a little bit. And we took a little bit of a mini break to, get some Kleenex. But I wasn't aware that I could do that I could be somebody who is like strong and holds space, but also caring at the same time, for somebody like that, who is in that type of, energetic space. So anyway, she decided to come back again for another session, and it was kind of the same thing again. She made it a little bit longer, but then she started crying. And it's like, okay, well, this is obviously a release that needs to happen. Like, I get that. I've been there before. Just get it out. I'm not judging you. And so continually, we just did continual sessions, and each time it changed. I would get different messages that would come in that would be appropriate for her at that time. And, as practitioners, we don't always understand the context of everything that we get. I think some people are kind of freaked out that, like, we're psychics and we know everything about you. We know everything that's in your head and everything you've ever done. And it's like, no, I can't, see that much into you. So, we receive what we're supposed to receive when we're supposed to receive it. And the last session that we did together before the pandemic took over, that was a really impactful session for both her and myself, because I started to receive a lot more information than I ever have before. Not only was I getting information from each archangel for each chakra, but I was also working with others, like Mother Mary popped in. Jesus was working with the Earth Star chakra, and then Archangel Metatron was working with the crown chakra. So I've got additional folks coming in to pass on messaging for her. And that has kind of happened before during sound sessions where other people will pop in, like Ash and Kuan Yin has popped in before for different folks. And then I typically pick up on animal totems, and I just I write it all down and I just give it to the client, and then they take it with them, and I'm like, sit on this, let me know what you think. And, the pieces that are meant to stick will stick. And during that last session, I said, I always open it up. I'm like, you don't have to tell me anything if you don't want to, but do you have a specific intention for today? And she said, I've been having a lot of issues with PTSD lately. And I said, okay, so we'll just hold that intention for today, and then we call in guides and angels and connect, and then we get started. And all of a sudden I was getting this information way out of left field. I'm like, I don't know what this has to do with anything, but I'm going to write it down. And it was all of this stuff about like Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, herbal stuff. And I'm like, okay. And there was almost like information about traveling, something about China, and that came from Archangel Michael. And I'm like, well, that's not really appropriate right now, Michael. Nobody can travel anywhere. But I'm like, all right. So I wrote it down.
The fact that you're telling Archangel Michael that that's not appropriate, that is why you and I get along right there.
Yeah, I was like,
no, please.
He's definitely a big brother for me, so I give him shit regularly. But he does that to me too. So, yeah. And he passed that on, and then I'm like, something with like herbal medicine, almost like teas. And so I wrote it all down, as well as the additional information that came in. And so she went home, she took the notes that I gave her, and then she sent me an article. And she says, you know how I asked you about my PTSD flare up? And I said, yeah. And she shared an article about how PTSD is connected to the gut biome. And she said that she booked a tea appointment to help support her gut biome. And I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. A, and B, you know, if you want to share, let me know how it goes. And I think hopefully when we can get together again, she'll share about that experience and about how that's hopefully helped. But yeah, for me, it was like, okay, I can actually do this. I can help hold space for people while they're doing the work, while they're working with whoever they need to work with, and I can assist in bringing that in. And then also, it's a trust. I trust the information I'm receiving, that it's important for them, and that I can send them on their way and I don't have to worry about it. So
It's a lot what spirit does to us, like, or anyone who can hear them too, is they just come in, they drop a nugget, and then like, you figure that shit out on your own.
Right.
But you're just being the one now dropping the nugget and going,
Deuces.
You go figure that shit out on your own.
Yeah.
It's really no different.
Right.
I love
Brady,
how you
sorry.
talk about it being cumulative, you know, like how, and it's almost like that connection built, and like how you just said is a lot of trust. Maybe the trust needed to build too or form. But I lost my train of thought. Go figure. But I really like how you said that, because I mean I've had clients too where it's like the first session's like, oh, this is good, and then the next one is better, and the next one is better. It's like you're able to get a little bit deeper each time, and
It's that onion peeling.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm not the best receiver when I have sessions, and I've received, I think, once or twice from you, Lena, right?
I think
At
so.
least-
That sounds like.
at least
Are you talking
one.
one-on-one or like during
Yeah.
shares?
No, one-on-one. Yeah.
Okay.
And there was the one time, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. And I laid on the table, and I was freaking flying for like 45 minutes. And asleep and drooling and snoring. And I swear I was snored at one point, and I heard her laugh.
I don't remember that.
You probably didn't laugh. You're too kind.
Clearly that was not an impactful session for her.
Clearly not. It didn't need to be, because it was for me. But yes, Lena, you hold a lot of space that you're just not even aware of. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks. And it.
So what do you find that, so this was fairly recent then, right?
Yeah.
How do you see that changing just your work going forward? Like, was there methodology or something that came forward during that time that you're like, oh, I might try this again kind of thing? Or was it just a boost of, I can do this. I am capable and I can do this kind of thing?
It was both, because when I started using ACI, I wasn't receiving messages from each of them individually. It was just kind of like a main message and maybe a few animal totems, and I'm like, okay, there you go. Which was good. You know, whatever seemed to be shared was relevant for them and they understood. But yeah, it was the changing of the strategy, basically, of like every single entity or angel or whoever that I'm working with has something to say for this person, and I have the ability to hear that from them and pass that on. So and then what I'll do is I'll just write it all down, and then I'll send it with them so that they can reflect on it and use it to do whatever they need to do. So it was both. It was both the boost in the confidence, and then, okay, now we have a different structure to work with. So
yeah.
And so you said like when you're doing your sessions, you just write everything down. Are you doing sound sessions? Is that what it is? No, you're doing the angelic chakra integration.
Yeah, so this is for the angelic chakra integration. But I
And is
would
that how
like,
you're taught to do it?
it was, and that's something that I reflected on later was, I don't really think so. It was more of like, this is how you can do it and use it for whatever you need to, because not everybody who does Reiki receives intuitive messages. Sometimes you just run the energy and that's what it needs to be. It wasn't necessarily that we were taught how to do it that way. And, but I think what's important to keep the balance is that we need to remember what it feels like to receive. And so I went and I received a session from Stephanie, and that's kind of how she did it, and all of a sudden it translated to me. And it, I'm
I
like,
have to
I hope
write.
that isn't a copycat thing, but
No,
Even if it is, isn't that the highest form of flattery?
true.
I have to write during a session, or I could never, because you're having multiple conversations, or and once you open that floodgate, there's so many channels of information. I could never remember everything that comes through. I have to just write and write and write, and usually I feel bad because clients are sitting there and I'm like, I'm really sorry, I just gotta keep writing. And then we circle the wagon all the way back around. Eventually we get back to it, but
and when
it
you're
helps
doing
me.
what kind of work, Missy, with that? The writing, is that like during theta or?
It started when I started doing the theta sessions, and then now it's like anything energetic. And we've always been, good about writing things down as far as like a family. And when we started channeling, like the scribing was something that always happened. Like we hand wrote everything because we had attended all the psychic fairs and things growing up, and we were like, okay, I don't remember what she said. Oh, and you get to the point, and that got frustrating, and then you can't necessarily always take someone else in with you, so then we were like, if we were in their shoes, we would want this all written down, so you can just tune out and receive and allow, and then we hand them the notes and deuces, and you're on your way.
And so you do it so they have something to take with them.
Not
and so you're getting it all down.
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Both, so that it's for them, and for like during a healing session, it's for me because like I get more into the biology of the body, and so when they may drop a word on me, like I told you guys about, I did not know what an amygdala was until they dropped that word in the middle of a session, and I was like, sorry, I'm gonna have to Google this because I don't know what this means. And the girl was like, it's fine, let me get my phone out. So they will say words which at first didn't necessarily mean as much to me as they do now, but then I would write it down and then go back, and they would indicate, okay, this area needs more intense work. And so it's just that onion peel where you take care of this out here, and then you get to get more focused. So
Jen, do you write stuff down too?
It depends. I think it depends on each person, because there's some people that I feel like I'm just so by the seat of my pants anyway. And so I always have a notepad and pen available, but sometimes it happens for me so quickly, maybe it just channeled or something, it just comes out before I even think to grab the pen. So I'll be talking about it, or I'll say it, and I think it depends on the person. I mean, there's some who are way more about, like for me, if I'm receiving, talk away at me. I'm cool with that, just, talk as you go. That's fine. So I think that's kind of where I tend to go to. Or it'll be like I'm getting absolutely nothing. I'm just focusing on running the work. And after, okay, we're coming back, all of a sudden then it's like, and I can just talk it through. So it kind of depends. It also depends on if I'm doing, maybe a distant session, via video live, or is it a recorded video, or is this a typed out thing? Like I do so many different formatting, I guess. So it really, for me though, I don't do I'll do like very brief, like keyworded, like very shorthanded, and then I'll have this page full of shit I gotta decipher. So it's almost better if I just.
I was gonna say, I know you, so do you ever draw pictures or draw symbols and things during?
Yeah. Sometimes it'll be light language will come through, so that's obviously a lot of it has to be, for me right now, is drawn. I haven't gotten to the verbal light language at this stage yet. Or if it'll be a symbol, I've gotten, little doodles or sketches or stuff like that too. So it kind of just all depends.
Me trying to explain the cell, like, this is what your cell is doing. And, I draw like a 12-year-old girl, So then I end up drawing cells. Oh, and here's the nucleus. Oh, look, I drew boobs. And then I'm like, oh, this didn't quite go the way I meant for it to go. And then I add a nose and a smiley face so that I did not draw boobs.
Oh my God.
I kind of do the same thing as Jen. Like, I'll change. The formatting is a little bit different depending on what's being used. Like, usually when I do sound, I enter a meditative state with them. And so the things that pop in, I can usually hold it on long enough. If it's a lot of info, then I may have to write it down. But yeah, when I'm working with that many people, I'm just like, right in my notebook.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get 2 full notebook pages of info. Here you go. So.
Wow.
Deuces.
Cool.
That's how it goes. So I take it that silence means it's my turn. I debated because, man, we have had some doozies. And I didn't know whether we wanted to go good. Like, do we want to shock the socks off of people, or do you want warm and fuzzies? Or because I've got all over the board, but our work, together as a family when we're channeling, I would have to say the most pivotal thing for me was learning that free will. Like, I consider myself sometimes a reporter. Like, when you're just channeling intuitively, they're filtering through your lens of perception. And when they're channeling through the board, there is no lens of perception. So it's directly from the collective consciousness or the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. And they're very careful about the words that they choose to use. We call that word ninjaing. And because they're always like, when they pick the words, because they're ultra defensive, or everything's like very precisely chosen. Unless we're talking to ETs and then they pick whatever word, happens. But they very early on, it was learning that free will supersedes God's will. And I grew up, like, we weren't like super Christian, but we also weren't Christmas, Easter Christians necessarily. We were somewhere in that middle land, so went to church. But then I grew up 9 years behind my closest sibling because my parents lost a child 2 years prior to me. So there was a big difference and a big gap in how my 3 other siblings were raised and the way I was raised. So I didn't necessarily attend church every Sunday, but it was just always there. And then, with my mom being able to talk to the spirit, we just always knew it was not, Christianity was a part of it, but it wasn't the main player kind of thing. But it's definitely in my programming that, church and the way to heaven is through Jesus Christ. And like, that was part of all of the way that I was brought up. And the way that I looked at society was through that lens. And so learning that free will supersedes God's will kind of spawns like a whole year's worth of introspection, both like privately, internally, and then also channeling wise, because it leads to learning how the creation cosmology is really done, because it brings in pieces of the laws of the universe and how does this happen? How God is supposed to be in charge of all these things, right? You're the big daddy, the head honcho. How are you not in charge of this? And it's not like that at all. Like, we just now privately we call him the big love battery, because that's he's the power and the power behind all of this, but we're the cogs that make it all work, and it's our creation and our design that does it. And it never ceases to amaze me and captivate my sense of wonder and creation when I get validated that, yep, you did this, and it not a blameful way. Like, yes, you created this pandemic, but not in a blameful way. This is what the collective was crying out for. Yes, you created the Holocaust. Here's how. And for me, I have a special ability of being able to be emotionally detached from things, which helps me be a little more journalistic and a little more observational, so then I can hear those things without an emotional reaction. And I know it's hard for people to hear those things, but to really see it and sit back and look at things now from the big lens is really impactful. And it helps in healing sessions, it helps in collective healing sessions. So it's short, but it was mighty for me. So that's it. Unless you want to talk weird. Randy's muted. Her lips are moving.
There you go. I like that. But I like what you said there in that, though, because it gives confidence, I think, in a lot of us. Like, we kept, like, a theme around some of what we were saying is this, we're finding out that we are able. And when we find out we are able, and then I did this, or I tried for, or I shot for this, and it happened, or that I created this, it just brings this confidence that I think we need. It kind of goes hand in hand. That, like, I got the validation from the big love battery daddy saying that, yeah, you did that. Go, you keep doing more, because that was
right.
Good stuff, and not in, like I said, a blameful way. It's just the accountability is there too. Also,
and it's so tied to what Lena was saying about dropping the seed and then you're out. Like, God is very that way. Like, here, I made this, and we and then peace, I'm out. And then we are very like that too. Like, I find myself constantly trying to find appropriate metaphors for people, because I think this is how we learn, is through stories. And then you can have your aha moment through stories, and the drop of water, like we're the ocean and I'm just a drop of water, but we're all made of the same thing kind of metaphors. And then that changes perspective. So we're always looking for new ways to communicate that, but it's very tied to, here's this, and then I'm going to stand here and see what you do with it. Almost like when your kids are out playing, you don't necessarily care what equipment they play on. You're right there watching. You'll be there if they fall, but so sorry.
That was good. They want the weird. I want the weird. Do you have a short story?
Probably the one. Oh, I can't tell you the new weird because I haven't figured it out yet. Probably the one that I was telling you guys about last time, where I'm not a physical empath or a physical medium in any capacity, although I know a couple, and I appreciate the fact that I don't do that necessarily. I'm good with that. But we were doing a removal of very interesting integration and removal process for a gal who lived, far away from us and had a family curse. And it was a voodoo curse. So, and that's not pigeonholing anybody or anything. That's just what this particular thing was. And it was particularly nasty. And upon my regular process is to just talk to said and try to work. And if it doesn't work, then you bring out the big guns and you let your light shine and you transmute and say, this isn't going to happen anymore, and you coach the client through their sovereignty as well. And I remember trying to do a removal and him grabbing me across like my throat, and I literally gagged, and I was like, and that was probably the strangest thing. That's definitely right up there in weird land for me, without getting, yeah, that's probably the weirdest thing I've ever experienced.
So you said so was it a male energy, or was that like a manifestation of the curse itself?
It was a manifestation of the curse itself, presented as almost like what was it? Ooh, Jesse's my memory bank, so Jesse and Linda. So not like it was not him, but it was a very similar energy, and it was Rastafarian. That's what it was. Which again was not a word I was familiar with, didn't know what that meant, wrote it down, then validated because it was a tag team sort of healing, and had to look up what Rasta curse was, what a Rasta curse was, but presented very much like that.
Super cool.
Yeah.
It was fun. But then afterwards I was like,
how many people do removals like that? Are like, hey, that was fun. Next weekend? Hey?
Because there's no room for when you're in, you guys know this, when you are in the zone, like I can talk to you and be timid about my abilities and such, but when I am in that space, I have no doubt and no fear and whatever space that is, I can do no wrong in terms of, I just listen and follow directions, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes in that case, you have to just shine your light and be strong and know your sovereignty, and
you show up. That's kind of what we're finding worth in showing up. I mean, like you said, when you're in the zone, you just it's almost like a fight or flight. Like we just show up and do what has to be done, and then afterwards you go, what the?
wow.
What did I just do?
It's like if I'm in my office and I sit in my chair, one of the two chairs, I'm like, okay, it's work time.
Mm-hmm.
This is the hat I'm wearing now. And there's no room not to be confident. You just have to do it.
Because people depend on you. They come to you for something, and you have to. I mean, they're not coming to you because they're wishy-washy about it. They need, there's no room for that in a lot of cases.
Do you have that? Is that a theme like of you as a person too, where you just, because I know with me, like this is just what you do. You just get this done, and that's a recurring theme. And then I'm just able to be even more so that when I'm channeling. So is that something that you regularly are, or are you completely different outside of when you're channeling?
For me, like if it's at work, like at work, definitely too. Like if something's asked of me, or if they don't know, or if they're relying on something, I don't know how, but I'm gonna get it done, and I find a way. And again, that's where it kind of intermingles, because somehow you're gifted the way, because you're kind of almost at surrender. Like I don't I don't know the hows, but it's got to get done, and somehow
Yep.
it gets done, right? And I think too that's like if I'm out in I know a lot of times where I've been pushed out in hiking or we're climbing this rock face. It's probably a little too dangerous to do, or different things like that. And you're like, no, like you just somehow you're in the flow. That's really where you feel the flow, and you just figure it out. You find the right footholds, the right handles, and you know you're supported. And you're like, fuck it, I'm doing it, and you just do it. And it's I think that's where that athletes get it very similarly on game day and different things like that. Musicians,
artists, that is flow.
yeah, and you just like it just happens, and because you know it, you're turned on, you got that hat on or whatever you want to call it. So I think we all have that to some capacity, and if not, then there's probably some sort of blockage of some sort that.
I think it's like a growing process. You don't
Mhm.
just immediately jump into this. I will say for me, I've noticed over the last 6 months, I have grown a ton in my being and who I am and who I present to the world. Not that I thought I was hiding before, but I think I was still hiding a little bit of myself from the world. And it was like safe for me to do it in my office and safe with my my family and friends that know about this and accept this. And now more than ever, I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. This is who I am. And not just this part of me, all of me. You know what? I'm at work and I trip and I fall. Well, I'm probably going to say something funny and move on. Whereas before, I probably would have been embarrassed and tried to hide. And now I'm just like, whatever. Here's who I am. But yes, yeah. And I can take on any challenge. I can take on any challenge, and I do. And I'm not afraid. I won't say that because Jen, you're climbing that face, that rock wall, and you have fear.
Right.
You're doing
But
it.
don't you think the fear and the anger, though, are two of the things that push you to get through it? Sometimes you need
It's a
that.
motivator.
I mean, those are the emotions with movement. So,
Yep. I think it's a process.
right.
oh yeah, it's a journey. It's one of their favorite canned statements. It's a journey. It will come.
I
Trust the
hated
process.
that. Randy knows how much I hated that. And she even said, "Oh."
We've
But I
completely
get
triggered
it.
Jen.
But I get
We're
it.
out. We've triggered Jen.
But I get it now, and now I'm doing that to people,
And
and
now
like
we
I
freaking
know,
say
like I
it.
get it, like oh, I get it. I couldn't have done it before because I didn't have the tools, the skills, the da 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 da. You can't just go, like I said, climb a rock without ever, never being outside once in your life. You have to test the waters. You have to build up to it, and at some point you just go, you know what? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna climb up there. I'm gonna climb that tree. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna are you sure? Yep. That's what's
It's
happening.
the conversations that happen before and after where you're like, it's that part where you sit back and go, what just happened? I don't know what that was. That because when we're in the flow, there's no judgment. Like you're not that's how you're able to move and be cat-like and oh, did you see what I did?
On
Look what I did.
On cue.
It's how you're able to be that sort of agile.
Come on.
That's why you gotta let the judgment go. Damn it, Abraham Hicks has been right this whole time.
Oh. Man, this was long, but I think it was awesome. It was
Sorry.
fun. No,
Oh, that's great.
No, not at all.
apologies at all. Does anybody have any questions? Comments?
We're just shooting the shit today.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'll just wait a couple minutes.
I have a phenomenal idea for a happy hour.
Yes.
You guys are gonna love it.
Talk.
I think we should do a woo version of Never Have I Ever.
Ooh.
Almost like never have I ever changed a word in a session. to something more PC. Like things like, stuff like that. Stuff that happens kind of behind the scenes, maybe. But
Should we tell them about the happy hour idea, though?
I thought we did
Yeah.
talk about it.
Did we?
Oops.
We talked about it, but we didn't.
That was the backstage session that we had.
See,
Look at me
did
being
more fun
transparent. I'm just gonna go right over here.
Whose idea was happy hour? I think it was Lena's or Missy's.
It was a collective decision. I don't have an individual brain anymore. It works only with collective.
Yeah, we all threw it out there.
Yeah.
No, I think Lena, what did you say? You had said something about it. Like we should just do a happy hour one night through the
Mm-hmm.
and just be totally chill and everybody could participate and
Mm-hmm.
anybody want to do that? Who wants to do that? I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Juliana says happy hour.
Woohoo, Juliana!
Yay!
I know these girls would be in with them.
You gotta watch
Just
out to catch them.
being available.
Yeah.
Thank you guys always.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
So if anybody has any ideas for things that you want us to talk about or questions you have that you want us to address, you can let us know. But we're gonna go backstage now and talk about what we're gonna talk about next week. All right.
Okay.
Have a good
Bye.
week.
Bye.
Bye.
Izzy, say bye.